Welcome to ODOT's video on how to design ADA-compliant curb ramps. According to ODOT policy, compliant curb ramps must be installed as part of ODOT LET or local LET resurfacing projects. This is the most common reason for having to design new curb ramps. When designing a curb ramp, you must detail it as shown in ODOT sample plan sheets. This includes proposed dimensions, slopes and cross slopes, and elevations if available. Avoid using maximum design values. If you encounter an obstacle, provide documentation that shows you made a good faith effort to resolve the problem. Designers of curb ramps typically have a low level of survey data. The data may come from LiDAR or by gathering field measurements with a smart level. In some cases, you may have a higher level of survey data available. If you have enough data to add elevations to your detailed designs, you should do so. Curb ramps come in 5 basic types. Tier 1 is considered the most desirable, and Tier 4 the least desirable. The blended transition is an additional design option. As a designer, you should only use a lower tier ramp if you've determined that a more desirable type cannot be constructed. Reasons for using a lower tier ramp may include drainage, utilities, right-of-way restrictions, geometric impacts, or operational issues. Tier 1 is the perpendicular ramp. This should be used whenever possible. This is generally the best design for pedestrians, provided that a landing at least 4 feet wide is available for each approach. A combined ramp has features of a perpendicular ramp and a parallel ramp, which we will get to next. It has return curbs on both sides and a turning space at the top. This design can be advantageous when dealing with a narrow sidewalk or a steep grade. These ramps may be more expensive and complicated to install. A parallel ramp may have 1 or 2 ramps leading down to a landing. A parallel ramp should only be used where the space between the curb and property line is too tight to permit the installation of both a ramp and a landing. A parallel ramp may be necessary on steep terrain or at locations with high curbs. A diagonal curb ramp is located at the apex of the street corner. The disadvantage is that it may direct a visually impaired person away from the crosswalk and into traffic. A diagonal ramp may not be used if the radius is less than 20 feet. A diagonal ramp is not an acceptable design for access to new sidewalks, but may be acceptable in a retrofit location where perpendicular ramps cannot be constructed. In some cases, a blended transition may be used instead of a curb ramp. A blended transition should primarily be used for areas with high pedestrian traffic and for shared use paths where the grade is 5% or less. Blended transition can often be found in downtown areas. Standard curb ramps have several components and must meet specific guidelines. The recommended minimum width of a curb ramp is 4 feet. The grade of a ramp must not exceed 0.0769 or 13:1. The cross slope must not be greater than 0.0156. Gutters require a counterslope at the point at which the ramp meets the street for proper drainage. This counterslope may not exceed 0.05, and the change in angle must be flush, without a lip, raised joint, or gap. Lips or gaps between the curb ramp slope and counterslope can arrest forward motion by catching caster wheels or crutch tips. The algebraic difference between the ramp slope and the gutter counterslope cannot exceed 11%, or else a 24-inch level strip must be provided between the two slopes. Landings provide a level area where wheelchair users can maneuver into or out of the curb ramp, or simply bypass it. A level landing 5 feet square is preferred. Level landings are required at the top and bottom of each ramp. The landing must have a slope of less than 1.56% in any direction. The flare of a curb ramp is a graded transition from the ramp to the surrounding sidewalk. A flare is only needed where the edge of the ramp abuts pavement. A flare is not intended to be a wheelchair route. Detectable warnings are standardized surface features on walking surfaces to warn visually impaired people of the transition between the sidewalk and the street. Detectable warnings should be used at the following locations: at the edge of a depressed corner, at the borders of a raised crosswalk or raised intersection, at the base of a curb ramp, at the border of a median or island, at a street crossing for a shared use path, where a sidewalk crosses a railroad track, at a blended transition. Detectable warnings are not needed where a sidewalk crosses an unsignalized driveway or alley, or at a pedestrian refuge island that is cut through at street level and is less than 6 feet in length in the direction of pedestrian travel. When designing a curb ramp, keep these objectives in mind. Provide a level maneuvering area or landing at the top of the curb ramp. Design ramp grades that are perpendicular to the curb. Place the curb ramp within the marked crosswalk area. Design the ramp so it doesn't require turning or maneuvering on the ramp surface. Provide a curb ramp grade that can be easily distinguished from surrounding terrain. Otherwise, use detectable warnings. Provide adequate drainage to prevent the accumulation of water or debris on or at the bottom of the ramp. Design transitions from ramps to gutter and streets that are flush and free of level changes. Align the curb ramp with the crosswalk so there is a straight path of travel from the top of the ramp to the center of the roadway to the curb ramp on the other side. Provide clearly defined and easily identified edges or transitions on both sides of the ramp to contrast with the sidewalk. As a designer, you will need to get access to the ADA Collector app from the District Transportation Asset Management Coordinator. If a curb ramp is feasible, you should follow these steps. Add the curb ramp as a new ADA asset with its proposed status. The overnight script creates a unique ID for each asset and adds LRS info to the record. The designer submits completed plans for final tracings. The district project manager notifies the district TAM coordinator. Bids for the project are received from contractors and the project moves to construction. If a curb ramp turns out not to be feasible during the design process, you will need to apply for a waiver. This should be noted on the title sheet and general notes of the construction plans. The process of obtaining waivers is covered in a separate video. Guidance on providing pedestrian push buttons is available in our signal design reference packet at our website. Thanks for watching this video. For more detailed guidance, you may want to go to the website of the Federal Highway Administration. And read their publication, Designing Sidewalks and Trails for Access.